So last year, my family and I had the pleasure of going to London, England. We flew into Heathrow Airport and we spent 3 days downtown in the core of the city just exploring as much as possible. And genuinely, what a beautiful city. It's so rich in real-world history, with stories dating centuries soaked into every single cobblestone brick. It is truly one of society's grandest and most important metropolises in every cultural and historical aspect. And underneath all of the divine architecture lies another wonder of the world, the London Underground. The Metro, the Tube, the world's first publicly operating underground railway system. Thank you for that. A feat in modern transport engineering. The Tube acts as the veins pumping blood through the heart of the city. Another amazing fact about the London Underground is that it personally ranks #1 for me in having the most mind-bendingly fucking confusing, least accessible spaghetti maze pattern designed thing that I've ever encountered in my entire life. I was really excited to go down there, and then I got down there. Even native Londoners have no fucking idea where they're going apart from their memorized routes. Toronto, we don't have much of a subway system. It's like 2 things. You can't get lost. My North American brain cannot comprehend non-square grid pattern cities, so maybe you can just make fun of me. Has anyone ever filmed a horror movie down there? Because it is the closest I have ever felt to being in the back rooms. Endless, unlabeled tunnels and corridors that spurt off in different directions. It goes up and down and up and down and over, and you never know when you're actually going to reach the platform. You just keep seeing other signs for platforms and you keep following the one you're going. My mom is disabled, and navigating the Tube was a nightmare. We spent much more time down there than we had originally anticipated. And it feels like everybody secretly knows it's really weird and non-accessible too. Because I mean, I couldn't help but notice that there were like panic buttons on the walls. They call them emergency help stations, but let's not be dense, these are panic buttons. But I will say that all of the main stations in Toronto, for the most part, have an elevator or some kind of accessible way to get out. But chances are somebody's made the elevator their home, so. Now, before you angry Brits come at me and say I'm like coming to your city and then complaining about your infrastructure, it's not just me. It's like an internal problem too. You're just not listening to the disabled people in your community. I was very appalled to find out that only 26% of the London Underground was accessible. 26%! Well, what do you want us to do? It's the London Underground. It's the oldest railway system in the world. You can't just dig it up and make a new one. But genuinely, I think the least you can do is make sure that the lifts are actually operable, properly labeled, and that disabled people aren't surprised with a staircase after they've passed the turnstile. And same with the above-ground London area. It felt like the cobblestone paths had not been touched since literally like the 17th century. If you drag your feet, London is not the place for you. Europe is not the place for you. I didn't realize how much I shuffled until I went to London, because every single cobblestone brick I was just like. But my mom, she has a walker, and when she doesn't have the walker, she's the cane. Something that people don't seem to understand is that when somebody's disabled, their mobility device becomes a part of their person. I get that back in the old days when they were making railway stations, those are back in the old days where we used to just let disabled people die. We did not care about them. But now I feel as a modern city with modern infrastructure, you should at least as a city be making space for citizens that historically have not been a part of your infrastructure plan. My mom isn't just gonna die. She's here. Disabled people have the right to live in the world too. I think I'm so frustrated about it because you really don't realize how much the world is not accessible until you're either disabled yourself or you're living with a disabled person. The first time we went down to the Tube, we just had to go like 1 borough over, and we spent more time folding and unfolding my mom's walker, making sure she gets up and down the stairs safely, than actually like being transported anywhere. We looked at the distance we could have walked, and it was a shorter amount of time because we got past the turnstiles and there was no indication that there was no elevator. And there's no indication of how far the platform is either. So every time my mom got down another flight of stairs, we turned a corner and there was another one. I'm just gonna show the 3D spaghetti weave render of the London Tube. Holy shit. So I get why everything goes up and down, but for disabled people, that shit's a nightmare. I just am not really sure why everyone boasts the London Underground is like first world technology when it doesn't even 26% of it is accessible? That would have been nice to know before going down there. Call me crazy, I guess we thought, since we were so downtown in a super, super large metropolis city, that the big stations we were going to were probably going to have operable lifts. And then they didn't. And some lifts, when you got in them, they only brought you down to a certain floor. So you got in the lift, and then you're on your own. Lord forbid if you were in a wheelchair, or you weren't a person like my mom who could actually stand and walk. What the fuck are you supposed to do? I'm going to extend this conversation beyond railway systems as well to the streets of London. I understand the importance of keeping these cobblestone bricks. I loved being in London a lot and looking around at everything, and I'm just like, wow, that looks cool. And then people are like, a great bloody battle happened here. I just would appreciate if you leveled your sidewalks a little bit. Not because of my feet shuffling, but once again, my mom has a walker and a cane. Spent a lot more time on the cobble sidewalks than we would have liked to. We were quite slow walkers in England. And it's not that there's not rude people in North America, but my mom has never gotten on public transit in Canada and had a rude lady say to her, move it shouldn't even be on here anyway. Like on the metro bus. She's just supposed to leave it? It goes back to the people not realizing that the mobility devices become a part of the person with the disabilities. Person. There was another incident that really gets under my skin back in 2019. I went to see Ariana Grande at Scotiabank Arena, and the security guy, before she could explain that she couldn't really walk without her walker or cane, the security guy takes her cane out of her hand and pulls the walker away. And she's like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, whoa bro, chill out, it's not that big of a deal, I just moved it. You don't touch somebody's... Riddle me this. If I had a prosthetic arm, would you just remove it from me? Would you just come up to me and take my arm off and go, chill bro? It's not that big of a deal. And then the security guy ended up calling my dad an asshole for complaining. And then this isn't even my story, but I met a girl at a concert who was in a wheelchair, and she recounted a time where she went to go see Florence and the Machine, and one of the security guards reached over her and started moving her chair back. And she was like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, oh, sorry, you needed to move back a little bit. And she's like, that's completely fine. I would have moved back if you wanted me to, but I already lack the freedom of mobility. You don't get to choose that for me. It just really gets under my skin. I really appreciate all the cultural, historical significance to keeping things as they were back in whenever these were made. We also don't just let people die anymore. Oh my god, I saw the median age for a person with Down syndrome in the 80s was 25 or something. How the fuck were we treating people with Down syndrome before the 80s that their median age was 25? I'm going based off of an article I read a few days ago, by the way. I don't know if this is entirely correct, but I will hand it to Canada. We're pretty good. Even before my mom was disabled, I always use the wheelchair accessible button because I don't want to touch the door handle, that's gross. Whenever I go to the US, I immediately notice an instant lack of accessible door buttons. I'm also lazy as balls, so I take the ramp a lot of the time. Obviously, I go with my mom as well, but I like ramps. Also, concerning lack of ramps. If this bugs me, and this is just coming from someone who lives with a disabled person. Imagine if you were actually the disabled person. How fucking frustrating and humiliating that is. To live in a city and be like, damn, they did not think about me at all. They don't even know I exist. They don't care about me. No one else cares. Clearly, I have to find my own way. I would love to know how it is in other parts of the world, but I would for the most part say that the illusion of accessibility that I'm talking about, it's the irony of walking down the tube and seeing a bunch of ads for we support diversity, we love diversity, as my family and I are all linked arm in arm trying to get my mom up the stairs because you didn't tell us there was no lift. But you know what else I noticed while I was in the UK? Yeah, I'm just gonna do a section that's weird things about the UK that I noticed. It'll be a little extra thing at the end, I don't know. I walked out of Heathrow Airport into a vape store. And then I was on the streets of London and I just saw vapes laying in the curbs and the gutters and stuff, just laying on the ground you'd throw away a cigarette butt. Every person around me was shrouded in a cloud of haze at all times. When I went on the cruise, all of my British friends had something. constantly. I met this one girl on the cruise who had this vape. It was branded as sour gummy bears, and it was like this giant tube thing. And I hit it, and it lit up at the bottom and made a sound. It made noise. And these things are like, they're cheap. They're cheaper. I didn't realize how much Europeans love vaping and smoking cigarettes. And also paid public bathrooms. So I walked into this public bathroom in like a park or whatever, and I see a turnstile, and they're just like 50 cents or pence. I don't know. I was like, first of all, very easy to jump, but why? I mean, I know why, because I've seen Toronto public bathrooms, but was the bathroom any cleaner than a Toronto public bathroom? No. No, it wasn't. So I'm assuming it's not doing much. Just feels slightly unnecessary, and I've never seen that before. I could also get into like the culture of alcoholism there, but I'm just not going to. All in all, it was a beautiful city. I would love to go back. It was so cool. Everything was so dense, and it was actually kind of walkable. Well, walkable if you're like able-bodied. I'm not shitting on your city. I had fun, but I also have opinions, as I always do. But I think I'm gonna end the video now. It's gonna be like a short one. We outie.